She walked into that mansion like someone stepping into a forbidden realm, her clothes plain, her hands calloused from work, and her heart carrying promises no one there would ever understand. The billionaire presented 10 young women with clay pots and announced, "The owner of the most beautiful flower will become my son's wife." They all laughed when hers remained empty, laughed out loud, but what none of them knew was that the real test wasn't about flowers at all. It was about character. And only one person passed. The grand gates of Stirling Manor opened promptly at 10. Inside the main hall, 10 young women were waiting. High heels, flawless makeup, custom-tailored gowns. Among them, Clara. She wore the best she had, a blue skirt meticulously ironed and a white blouse with slightly worn sleeves. She was out of place, and she knew it. Ethan came down the stairs next to his father, visibly uncomfortable. "Dad, please, not again. This time is different, Ethan." Arthur Sterling smiled. "It's a test." The butler brought a cart with 10 identical clay pots. Each one was filled with dark, moist soil. Arthur spoke in a loud, commanding voice. "For 30 days, you will tend to these seeds. At the end, the most beautiful flower will determine who becomes my son's wife." The young women smiled, captivated. Clara simply swallowed hard, clutching the pot she had just received against her chest. And it was right there that the first root of conflict began to grow. The room Clara was given was larger than the entire house she shared with her mother and 2 sisters. The linen curtains, the bathroom with light marble, the bed that felt more like a boat. Everything in it screamed that she did not belong. She took the pot from her bag and placed it on the table. The cool feel of the ceramic was a stark contrast to the warmth of her palms. Hands used to soap, to brooms, to the weight of lunchboxes delivered with a forced smile to downtown offices. She sat on the edge of the bed and pulled a crumpled photo from her pocket. Her mom, Maria, lying on the sofa, smiling despite her weakness. Behind her, her sisters, Lily and Chloe. So small, so dependent. She whispered, "I know it's crazy, but it's all we have." Days earlier, while cleaning the teacher's lounge at a school, she'd overheard the teachers talking about the Billionaire's challenge. They laughed and called it a circus, but Clara jotted down the foundation's name on a yogurt cup a child had left behind. She showed it to Mrs. Davis, her neighbor, who immediately said, "Go, girl. If it works out, your mother will never have to step foot in a public hospital hallway again." That's how Clara, with a single backpack and makeshift faith, ended up there. On the first night, dinner was served on fine porcelain. The contestants spoke of exotic travels, study abroad programs, cosmetic clinics, and beaches with French names. She watched in silence, discreetly copying the way the woman next to her held her fork. When Ethan walked in, all of them straightened up. Clara lowered her eyes, trying to hide her nervousness, but he noticed, and he smiled. A quiet but genuine smile. "And you, Clara, where are you from?" She hesitated. "The North Side. Fairview." The room fell silent for a few seconds. "It's where my mom still lives," she added, trying to sound less invisible. The woman at the end of the table let out a muffled giggle. Another whispered something Clara couldn't hear and preferred not to. At the end of the meal, wine slipped, as if by accident, from a candidate's glass directly onto her white blouse. "Oops, sorry, my mistake," said Olivia, with a smile that didn't ask for forgiveness. Clara pretended it didn't hurt, but it did, and it was right there that everything began to crumble. Clara had a plan, simple, direct, desperate. Win the challenge, take the prize money, get enough to admit her mom to a proper clinic, and put her sisters in full-time school. She didn't want luxury. She wanted peace. She believed she could stand out through sheer effort. After all, her grandmother used to plant gardens in paint cans in the dry yard of the shack where she was born. If anyone could make a flower sprout from a handful of dirt, it was her. The next morning, While the other young women came down for breakfast in satin robes and French perfume, Clara knelt on the floor of her room, cleaning the rim of her pot with a cotton cloth. She placed the terracotta pot near the window, used her fingers to measure the depth of the seed, and watered it with the care of someone tending to a newborn. It's going to work. It has to work. But outside the door, a different kind of seed was sprouting. Ridicule. Olivia and two other contestants spoke loudly on purpose whenever Clara walked by. She looks like she works here. Does she know this isn't a reality show for cleaning ladies? Maybe she's confusing flowers with weeds. Ethan, always polite, tried to show Clara kindness with small gestures, a prolonged good morning, a genuine question about her mother. But his presence only seemed to make things worse. Every smile from him was a trigger for more jokes from the others. One day, as Clara watered her pot on the balcony, Olivia appeared. "You're really taking this seriously, aren't you?" "How cute." Clara remained silent. "Can I give you a tip?" Olivia leaned in. "You can take off those simple clothes, but the smell of your origin will always follow you." Clara felt her face burn. "I didn't come here to fight with anyone. You don't have to. You just need to face the facts." Olivia turned and, before leaving, delivered a final blow. "Oh, and if you need to use the laundry room, just ask the staff. I'm sure you know exactly how that works." Clara went back to her room and locked the door. She sat on the floor, leaning against the wall. For a moment she wanted to disappear. For another, she wanted to scream. She picked up her old cell phone and called home. "Hi, Mom. Everything okay there?" "It's fine, honey. The girls are studying. Mrs. Davis brought us some vegetables. And you?" I'm okay. Just more tired today. The medicine is running low." "Mom, just hold on a little longer. I'm going to make this work." Clara hung up. The cracked screen reflected her own exhausted face. Next to the bed, the pot sat quietly, with no sign of a sprout. She stared at it. "And you? Are you going to disappoint me too?" Outside, the muffled sound of laughter. Inside, the sound of doubt beginning to take root. And she still thought she could fix everything. That week, the mansion's garden burst into bloom. Tulips, lilies, roses. The other contestants walked the halls like models on a spring runway, each with their pot in hand, showing off the first sprouts, the first colors, the first compliments. All except Clara. Her pot was still the same, dark soil, quiet, untouched. She tried to pretend everything was normal. Woke up early, checked the moisture, positioned the pot in the right light. But inside, everything was starting to wither. On the morning of the 15th day, the phone rang. It was Chloe, her younger sister, her voice trembling. "Clara, Mum collapsed. We took her to the ER, but there are no beds. She's lying on a gurney in the hallway." "Is she conscious?" "Yes, but she's different. I'm scared. The doctor said she needs urgent hospitalization." Clara's legs felt like they were giving out. I'll figure something out. Hold on tight." "Clara, we don't have any more food, not even rice. The neighbor brought bread yesterday, but it's gone." The call dropped. Clara stood there for minutes, the silent phone in her hand and her breath caught in her chest. The pot on the table seemed to mock her. Every inch of those caring hands had failed. She decided to go out. She needed to breathe. She walked through the empty halls of the mansion until she found the back garden. She sat on a stone bench under an old tree. The sky was beginning to darken. The flowers around her seemed to be laughing quietly. She began to cry. It wasn't a loud cry. It was a choked, exhausted cry that came from deep within and carried all the layers of her weariness. Her hands trembled. Her shoulders, too. Memories of the public hospital, of her mother being ignored at the front desk, returned like invisible daggers. That's when a shadow approached. "Clara?" It was Ethan. She tried to dry her face, but failed. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," she replied, her voice shaky. "Clara?" She hesitated, but something in his presence, the calm tone, the respectful silence, made her open up. "My mom is in a hospital hallway, my sisters are hungry, and I'm here, playing make-believe with a flower, being humiliated by people who don't even know me. just because I'm from the wrong side of town. Ethan walked over and knelt in front of her. Let me help. I don't want charity. It's not charity, it's care. She looked at him, feeling anger and affection at the same time. You don't even know me. And I do. I know how to recognize someone real. Ethan took out his phone and, without waiting for approval, made a few calls. In half an hour, everything was settled. Her mom would be transferred to a private hospital. Her sisters would receive a food basket the next day. It's done, he said with a firm voice. Now you can breathe. Clara tried to speak, but no sound came out. Why are you doing this for me? Because maybe this is the first time I've seen someone here who is more beautiful on the inside than on the outside. And I'm tired of living among masks. That night, lying in bed, Clara couldn't sleep. The room was neat. Her mom safe. Her sisters fed. But inside, the mud was still there. The fear of not winning. The weight of being the only one without a sprout. The feeling that, even with everything, she still wasn't enough. And when she opened her bedroom door the next morning, she knew she was right. Her clothes were thrown in the bathtub, soaking wet. The photo of her mom was ripped. A lipstick on the mirror left a message. Go back to the gutter you came from. Clara pressed her bare feet into the cold floor. She took a deep breath. She picked up the torn pieces of the photo and taped them back together. She spent the entire day in silence. She gathered the clothes. She washed them, folded them. She was tidying up, as if it were an emotional cleansing. That night, sitting next to the empty pot, she whispered, I just wanted a fair chance. But the world didn't seem to know what fairness was, and in the early hours of the morning, she thought no one would ever come back. Have you ever felt that way? Like the whole world is pushing you down, and still you try to get back up one more time? If this scene spoke to you, comment yes below. Just so I know, you also fight every day with courage. Clara didn't remember falling asleep. She woke up to the soft light filtering through the linen curtain and a subtle scent of jasmine drifting from the garden. She sat up in bed slowly. Everything ached. Her back, her eyes, her pride. But it wasn't the pain of defeat anymore. It was the pain of someone who had fallen. Yes, but was no longer on the ground. She held the pot in her lap and ran her fingers through the soil. I'm still here. Are you? She left the room and went straight to the mansion's greenhouse, where few people ever ventured. There she found the gardener, Mr. Frank, tending to a row of azaleas, with the patience of someone having a conversation with time itself. Mr. Frank, can I ask you something? Of course, my dear. You can ask me 2 things. She showed him the pot. She explained everything she was doing, how she watered it, where she kept it. He listened without interrupting. He took a handful of the soil, smelled it, and touched it with his calloused fingers. The soil is alive, he said. Your care is right, but not all seeds want to be rushed. What if it never sprouts? Mr. Frank smiled with his eyes, as if he already knew the answer. Then maybe the sprout isn't in the soil, girl. It's in you. She stood there for a while, in silence. The sun streamed through the glass roof, reflecting on the petals around her. She took a deep breath. For the first time in many days, she truly breathed. She went back to the room, straightened the sheet, and rehung her mother's photo, this time with double-sided tape. She picked up the pot, cleaned the rim, and spoke to it as if it were a person. I don't know if you're going to grow, but I will. And in that moment, she didn't know if it would work. But for the first time, she wanted to try. The following days were filled with silence and a new beginning. Clara started waking up before the others. She would go down alone to the garden, still damp with dew, carrying her pot like it was a secret. She chose a new spot for it, near a fountain and under a trellis where the sun came in filtered. She consulted old books in the mansion's library, watched videos on her old phone with the cracked screen, and wrote everything down in a blue-covered notebook. It was like going back to being a student, but this time, her life was at stake. Mr. Frank showed up one morning carrying a wooden box with gardening tools. I thought you might need these, he said, handing them to her carefully. She smiled with gratitude. Between one pruning and another, she learned to control the amount of water, to identify signs of fungus, to measure the soil's acidity with a simple vinegar trick. Each discovery was a small victory, but the other contestants weren't blind. "Trying to pretend you're a botanist now?" One of them scoffed. "Poor thing, still thinking something's going to grow in that cemetery pot," another commented, with a mocking laugh. Clara heard them, but she didn't absorb it like before. Not that it didn't hurt, it did, but now there was a layer of resolve on her skin, thin, but present. Ethan watched from a distance. He noticed something had changed in her, a kind of serenity he had never seen in anyone there. He started to wonder if his father's test, so strange, so strict, wasn't in fact working. On a cloudy afternoon, he found her sitting on the greenhouse floor, surrounded by clay pots and dried leaves. "I thought you were going to give up," he said, walking closer. "I thought so too," she replied, without looking up. "Why are you still going?" She thought for a moment. "Because even if I don't win, at least I won't be carrying shame. And for me, that's more than I had when I got here." Ethan didn't reply. But in that moment, he understood that it wasn't her who needed to win the challenge. It was the challenge that needed her. On the 22nd day of the challenge, Clara was discreetly called by the housekeeper. Olivia wanted to talk to her. In the music room, where no one dared enter without an invitation, Olivia was waiting, seated in front of a white piano, a glass of lemon water in her hand, her posture straight, her gaze cold. "So glad you came," she said, as if offering a kindness. "I thought it would be best for us to settle this between ourselves." Clara didn't reply. Olivia opened a folder and took out a thick envelope. $50,000, in cash, for you to leave the competition today. No fuss, no drama. Clara frowned. "You want to pay me to quit? I want to give you a chance to do what you already know is going to happen. Lose. But this time, you'll gain something." Silence. "With this money," Olivia continued, "you can get your mom into a clinic, buy a better house, pay for your sister's school. Wasn't that what you wanted?" Clara felt the ground waver. 50,000. Salvation. Olivia stood up and approached her. "We both know you won't win. You couldn't even make a plant grow. And between us, no one will miss you." "And what if I refuse?" Olivia's smile vanished. "Then I'll do whatever it takes to make you regret it. I've done it before. And I can go much further." Inside, Clara was at war. Accepting meant betraying everything she believed in, but also saving the people she loved most. Refusing meant continuing to fight, alone, against a system built for her to lose. She left the room with the envelope still in her hand. She couldn't breathe properly. She went to the garden and found Ethan sitting on the stone bench, reading. "Is everything okay?" he asked, noticing her pale face. "She offered me money." Ethan dropped the book immediately. "How much?" 50,000. "To get out of here and never see you again." He looked her in the eyes. "What are you going to do?" She took a long time to answer. The wind rustled the leaves in the garden. The flowers swayed in silence. "I still don't know." But deep down she already knew. She just needed the courage to confirm it. On the morning of the final day, the mansion's main hall had been transformed. Chandeliers were lit, a long central table covered with a white linen cloth, a soft instrumental score filling the air. Each of the 9 contestants carried her pot like a trophy. Exuberant flowers, in all colors and shapes, filled the space with perfume and extravagance. Clara was last. She walked slowly, the empty pot in her arms. The envelope was still in her bag. It weighed more than the pot itself. Arthur Sterling, the billionaire, waited in the center. Next to him, Ethan, dark suit, hands clasped, a serious expression. "Ladies," Arthur began, his voice deep, "today we will meet the winner, the owner of the most beautiful flower, the future wife of my son." One by one, the contestants presented their pots. Vibrant tulips, rare orchids, even a black rose appeared, supposedly cultivated with special techniques. Arthur watched everything with a neutral expression. He didn't praise, he didn't criticize. He just listened. It was Clara's turn. She stopped in front of the table. She felt all eyes on her, some eager, others impatient, most just waiting for the spectacle of her humiliation. She lifted the pot with both hands. The soil was still dark. No sprout. Nothing. "Mr. Sterling," she began, her voice firm but trembling. "I did everything I could. I watered it. I cared for it. I studied. But nothing grew." She took a deep breath. "I could have bought a plant. I could have faked it like everyone expected me to. But I didn't. Because if I had lied, the person standing here wouldn't be me. It would be a version of me created just to please you. And that I can't be." A strange silence took over the room. Even Olivia in the back stopped smiling. Arthur Sterling stood up. He walked toward her. He picked up the pot gently and held it up as if it was something precious. "Finally," he said to everyone's surprise, "we have found the most beautiful flower." The other contestants exchanged confused glances. Olivia stepped forward. "But her pot is empty." Arthur smiled. "It is, because all the seeds I gave out were infertile." A murmur of shock spread through the hall. "All of you were tested, but not in gardening. You were tested on your character." He pointed to the blooming pots. "I saw plants being bought, pots being swapped. Miracle techniques that were born ready-made." He turned to Clara. "Except her, the only one who chose the truth, even knowing it might mean losing." Ethan smiled. His eyes were shining. He walked to Clara and took her hand. "That's why I fell in love with you." Olivia tried to argue, but Arthur held up his hand. "I've seen enough. You may all leave." While the others left the room in silence, some with their heads down, others fuming, Clara remained there with the empty pot in her hands and her heart beating like never before. Ethan turned to her. "I don't care about flowers. I care about you." And right there, in front of everyone, he kissed her. It wasn't a movie kiss. It was a simple, sincere kiss. A kiss that said, "I see you." And after everything, that's what Clara needed most. 2 months later, the house was different. Not the mansion. Clara never wanted to live there. But the simple little house in Fairview now had a fresh coat of paint, a sturdy fence, and a front porch with 2 ceramic pots just like the ones from the challenge. In one, daisies were blooming. In the other, a newly opened purple flower, a small, stubborn victory. Her mum, Maria, was sitting in the rocking chair covered with a shawl she received from the private hospital where she completed her treatment. Her sisters were running in the yard in clean uniforms and colourful backpacks. In the kitchen, Clara was mixing flour and milk, preparing a corn cake just like the one from her childhood. Next to her, Ethan was cutting up guava paste for the filling. "You're eating more than you're filling," she teased, nudging his shoulder. "I'm not just here for the cake, you know." "Oh, you're not," she smiled. "I'm here for the most stubborn and beautiful gardener in the whole city." She blushed. Ethan stopped cutting and looked at her. "We can make this work. It doesn't have to be with mansions or red carpets, just with truth." Clara looked at him for a moment. Then she took a flower from the pot on the porch and tucked it behind his ear. "If you can take care of this flower for a whole month, maybe I'll consider letting you move in with me." He laughed out loud, and Maria from the porch called out, "Make sure you water it right, Ethan. The other one gave you enough trouble." They all laughed. It was a scene Clara never imagined she would live. That night, alone in the yard, she sat in front of the pots, now with hands free of soil, but full of memories. She ran her fingers over the flower she had cultivated herself. She no longer needed to prove anything to anyone. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and smiled at the starry sky. She didn't win the world, but she won the battle within herself. Clara learned that not every flower is meant to bloom, and that sometimes the seed that doesn't sprout is the one that teaches you the most. All her life she thought she had to prove something, that she would only succeed if she was accepted, if she fit in, if she bloomed the way others wanted. But the challenge showed her something else. It showed that dignity is a rare flower, And that, even invisible to the eye, it grows in silence, in the dark, in pain, in resistance. By choosing not to lie, even with everything stacked against her, Clara didn't just pass a test. She rescued herself, and she also rescued the hope that there is still a place in this world for those who choose what's right, even when the right thing seems crazy. She saw that character is a root, that the truth can seem empty for a while, but one day it blossoms, and when it blossoms, no one can tear it out. And now, looking at you on the other side of this screen, maybe you are also holding an empty pot. Maybe you did everything right and still nothing happened. No response, no sprout, just silence. But if that's true, listen closely. It doesn't mean you failed. It might mean you are going through the most important test of your life, and that what's growing inside of you is worth more than any flower on the outside. If this story moved you in any way, go ahead and hit that like button. It's the simplest and most beautiful way to say, I felt that too. And tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I read all of them carefully, and I reply whenever I can. I love knowing how far these stories are reaching. If you believe in the power of stories like this, subscribe to the channel. With every new subscriber, I have more strength to keep going. And don't leave just yet. Choose one of the 2 stories on the screen right now. I'll see you in the next video.